Hello, and welcome to the devlog for my as of yet unnamed RPG project. I guess I should just walk you through the basics since this is the first episode of what I hope to be a string of videos just cataloging my progress through game development. I'm already a decent ways in, working toward my first vertical slice, so I think I will show you some of the basics by swapping over to the gameplay demo. So we'll start with just doing the combat demo. The way this game works is a tactical auto battler. Before you actually ever make it to a fight, you will spend a lot of time customizing and equipping, leveling up all of your individual demons. You are the leader of a small demon army that you train and collect and corrupt more people to become demons to join your side. And you're going to be fighting against the people who are worshipping the pantheon of cruel, unfair, distant, and generally maligned gods, and their many keepers who try to keep the peace in that they are all-powerful and try to crush anybody who does not follow them utterly. So it's kind of you're playing the bad guy, but who's the real bad guy sort of game. Both of you are kind of awful, but it's in a fun way. It's supposed to be reasonably lighthearted. It has some messaging in there, but, you know, overall, it's not supposed to be that serious of a game. But, again, once you've reached this point where you're going to start a battle, all of the AI has a ton of logic inside of them that we'll walk through later that lets them do auto battles. So each of them will, in turn, go and fight each other. We have pretty limited animation right now, because that's going to be one of my biggest hurdles as we get farther along in production, is I have, I think, hundreds to potentially low thousands of animations to do for every single body and weapon type. So that's going to be a huge block. And you can see as we go through here that we get the battle round that'll tell you what everybody's done. I'm supposed to have a small minimize button here. I must have accidentally disabled it. Once per round, you as the player do get to do an action. At the start of the game, these actions will actually be disabled, and they will be unlocks that you get as you go further along. I'm also thinking about adding a few more of these. I just haven't fully implemented them yet. But these will be things like you can heal someone, you can add a shield buff to someone, you can set taunt to someone. This one's actually really interesting because it's all of these abilities can be used on either side. And taunt is the one you'll probably be doing that with the most, because what you can do with taunt is if you have somebody on your team who is your tank, they're designed to be able to take damage for a long time. You can put taunt on them, and it'll make everybody on this team more likely to attack that person. Or if there's somebody on this team who has maybe ability that you don't particularly like, or you really want to focus them down. Let's say there's a caster in the back who has a spell that's really bothering you, but you don't have enough damage to kill them because there's two people in front of them guarding them. You can taunt the people in front of them, and your team is more likely to attack that person. So you should actually be able to see that in action. If I cast taunt on that guy, you can see he now has the taunt effect, and immediately the first person is like, oh, that person's taunted, will attack him. Every time somebody performs an action on either team, they go through a large calculation to do threat analysis using all of their different abilities, their weapon, and their spells, and ultimately will perform the action with the highest threat. Noting that there is some randomness in that system. That way people don't do the exact same thing every single time unless it is extremely advantageous. One of the other things is we have an item system. So instead of using your normal abilities, you can also use your consumable items. So here we have a mana potion and a mysterious mushroom. The mana potion obviously restores mana. The mysterious mushroom has a bunch of random effects that it can apply. So in fact, let's go ahead and just like the spells, you can do these on either side. At some point, I might change this so items can only be used on your own people, because it seems weird to be like, how do I get an enemy to eat a mushroom in the middle of battle? That might change in the future, but for now, I can Yeah, see, I made him eat the mushroom, and it actually made him sick, I believe. The 6 status effect makes them a little bit slower and a little bit less strong. But he's also dead, so it doesn't matter anymore. And you can also see here, I keep toggling this on and off because I'm just going to let this go. But if you want to, if you're in a battle that you're fairly confident you're going to win and you don't want to spend much time on, you can hit this auto battle button, hit continue, and the game will just continue on with the fight without your interaction. It'll have a couple seconds between each battle round in case you want to toggle auto battle off and do an action, but otherwise, after a couple seconds... Uh-oh, that's a bug. That was working yesterday. I think I re-architected a bunch of where the buttons were and everything, and that probably broke this, so it probably is calling to something... Its call is no longer reaching where it's supposed to be. So I will make a note of that and fix it. Wow, this battle is still going. Okay, there we go. That was the demo battle. If we go over into the customizer, so this is where you're going to be spending all your time customizing your demons. So here we have a level up screen, so if I debug to add some levels, you can see that you can use your free stat points to increase these. So health is health, mana is mana, armor resists physical damage, resist magical damage. Oh yeah, in fact, look, we have the tooltips there. Damage from magical sources, and resist most of the status effects. Speed increases your dodge chance and how likely you are to go first in the turn order. Strength just adds weapon damage. Mind is your mana recovery and how many spells that you can have. It also has a slight effect on the mana pool. So if I increase my mind a couple times, you see the mana point goes up once. It's obviously a lot less than doing it by directly doing this. Stability has sort of the same effect, where stability reduces your knockdown chance, stun being the most common status effect in the game and the most impactful. You just completely lose a turn. But also, every once you get 1 HP per stand compared to like 3 when you do it normally. So that's just a small increase to make this a little bit more balanced, because stability is, by itself, without that health increase, is probably not as good as a lot of the other stats. Same thing with kind of mind, unless you have a dedicated spellcaster. But it does give you a little bit bonus. And we also have weapons, so you can swap out weapons here. It'll show you what you currently have equipped. Look, I currently have a lot of weapons that are planned out. These technically all work, they just don't have their... what am I trying to say? Their art, so they won't actually physically equip them on the model. Eventually they will. Every single one of these will be completely animated. I have a bunch of different wielding styles and types of weapon to go through. So, and you can also see that they are colored by their tier, with this kind of gray being tier 0. So these are like kind of trashy basic weapons, like even like the unarmed, like fists and claws, pitchforks, a rock that you can throw at people, and then it goes to green for the basic weapons, blue, then copper, silver, and gold. Spells is similar, so this is all the spells we have in the game at the moment. I might make a few more, but for the moment, this is what I have. Some of these are direct damage spells, so like Fireball, Firebolt, just deal damage to the enemy. A Healing Circle, similar, that's in Healing Touch. These are just direct healing. We have some that are just status effects, so Death Fog applies poison to a whole bunch of people at once, but doesn't deal any direct damage. There's Electro Whip, which deals damage and also does some mana burn. So when you hit an enemy with this, it'll hurt their health and their mana pool. And then we also have ones that deal damage and status effects. So Blood Boil deals a bunch of damage, but it'll also apply the sick effect. So you can see we have a good grouping there. And Shield, you can also have ones that apply buffs. At maximum, once you have 8 mind, you get 3 spell slots. We have the talent tree, so you can see this is a character that's already leveled up. They have a couple of talents already. Technically, they shouldn't be able to have these ones. This is one of my debug characters that I've just been throwing things on to test them. Normally, you would have to have Undead before you could get Haunting, and you would need Tail before you could get Feral, but you can see I have a fully operational tree here for showing off all of the different upgrades you can apply. Some of these upgrades are mutually exclusive. Like if I go ahead and buy Chiseled, you can see I can no longer have Voluptuous. At the moment, I believe that is just these two are mutually exclusive. Yes. Some of these will also, including both of the manually exclusive ones, unlock additional things within the character customizer. Actually, if I equip tail and horns, you'll see that they get added to the character. Which brings me on to the biggest part, and the part that a lot of people have played with, is that the character customizer lets you fully, customize your characters. So you can do all of the colors, you can change out their hairstyles. So we have a limited number of options right now, which is just enough to kind of get a test of, proof of concept for everything. And people have already really enjoyed playing with it. You can use the wheel here, or you can go through this. Mouths, noses, typical boob slider. And also, if you have an upgrade, so the tail and the horns are both upgrades that give you stat effects, and they unlock these toggles. But if you turn them off, you get to keep the effect, but they just no longer are shown on the character. This way, if you want a status bonus, so the tail actually gives you additional resistance to being stunned, you can turn it off, she'll keep that resistance, it just doesn't show. So it gives you the option to show something, but you are not required to show it. There'll be things that are locked if you don't have an upgrade, but you'll never be forced to show anything other than an equipped weapon. Yeah, I think I've showed off most of the things here. Oh, yes. Yeah, my horns don't show up, they don't show up. But yeah, so we can go ahead and save that. Yeah, and obviously you can go through all of the rest of the demons you have. So here's just a handful that I've customized, or that I had randomly. I think Matilda was a random generation, which actually takes me over to the demon spawning pool. Every single in-game day, you'll have 3 demons who pop up here who are ready to be hired and join your cause. Uh-oh. I've hit a bug! Funnily enough, there was a small bug in that scene. Let me recapture the scene. Be this one. I'll have to figure out what that bug was as well. For some reason, hovering over these characters caused a null reference on somebody's name, so somebody wasn't getting assigned properly. Yeah, you can see when you hover over them, it will show you the basic weapons they've equipped and their stats. Sometimes you'll see stats highlighted in green, but these are called favored stats. Favored stats get a little bit of bonus upgrade per level, so demons that have 2 favored stats will cost more. Sometimes they'll have 1, sometimes they have 0. So it kind of tiers the demons. Obviously having a bunch of demons with 2 favored stats is going to be better late game because you'll have, a higher overall stat total. At some point, I might introduce into this screen, or the customized screen, a way to spend your corruption or gold, which are your 2 main currencies, to assign a favored stat. That way, if you have a demon you're particularly attached to, like you've had them for most of the game, they're like one of your buds, but they're falling behind because they don't have a favored stat, you'll be able to spend, some amount of your corruption power to give them that stat, and they'll retroactively get the upgrades they would have had if they had it. So that way no demon ever has to be left behind, and you can always use, your favorites and who you're attached to. We have the Warband Manager. So this is where you would go when you want to make your warbands. So you can have a bunch of warbands at once. My plan is for the kind of roughly when you're hitting the late game to have somewhere between 8 to 10 warbands at any given time. I don't think I'm going to put a hard cap on it, unless I get to playtesting and people are like, oh, the game's actually really broken if you just have like 30 warbands out at once, you can do some bullshit. But if as long as it's not too egregious and annoying, I will, let the player just generate new warbands as they will. You get to name your warband. Every warband has an inventory of 6 items. So part of this is going to be that you want to take items that are going to be useful. So mana potions, the mysterious mushrooms, although mysterious mushrooms are kind of random. Don't know if you'll necessarily want them, but you'll also be able to take things like barrels of wine and live pigs. These are not actually things you would bring with you into battle, but they'll be things that you pick up after fight. So you go and you beat up some villagers and you loot a live pig from them. It doesn't do anything, and it actually says in the description, this is for selling. So if you have this, you want to bring it back to your base and you sell it for gold. So you're always dealing with this inventory of how many things do I want to bring with me to help my combat chances, or how much room that I want to leave open so that I can bring back more loot to sell stuff. Obviously, if you go here, that's how you swap out your demons. Save that warband. Which takes us to, yeah, I think the blacksmith. So this is the shop. So every single day, just like the normal demons, these 3 items and these 3 items are going to rotate. These are going to be the weapons that you can purchase, and these are going to be the items that you can purchase. You see, I have the basic art for our blacksmith here. Eventually, I want this to be animated, so he'll actually be hammering on something, slowly making probably arrowheads, because I've looked at a couple different blacksmithing things. And that actually seems like a reasonable animation that I could finish, just him just hammering out a little arrowhead, and you can swap between them. And I want a bunch of things in the background that you can click on to mess with while you're here, just for fun, because it's one of those neat little features. I'll have a quartermaster over on the side as well. And you can see, oh, actually, I can debug to hit new days. So you can see this is changing the in-game day, moving it forward, and these things rotate. And obviously, you can also go over here and sell everything. You can tell that I have a ton of weapons to sell right now, because I debugged to give myself every single weapon in the game. So normally you would not have this many. Well, sometimes you might have this many items. Same thing over here. So actually you can see, like, these are just for selling. So I'm going to go ahead and sell both of those. And we can return and confirm and transactions. So the last thing we want to do is go to the overworld map. So this is what the overworld will look like. You'll have your demons out in the overworld. You'll be able to assign a leader who will show up as the map demon for your different warbands. So right now, Matilda is our leader. A bug I have in this one is that because I handmade this warband, it wasn't made through the editor, is the leader of this warband is not currently actually in this warband. This warband only has 1 demon. And not really a bug, because a player wouldn't be able to do that. I did that for my... This warband used to have more people in it, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, you see they have a amount that they get to move for their turn. So I can go wander her over here, and now she's done for this round. And I can swap over here, and what I can do is wander them over into this enemy, and this will pop up a thing that says, oh, hey, you've wandered into an enemy. You can start a fight, or you can run away. If you run away, you'll be able to, you'll move 1 block kind of randomly, and you can use the rest of your movement to get away. Enemies, obviously, if they want, they could follow you, but they won't necessarily always. An instance from which they probably wouldn't follow you, but you would want to run away, is you were attacking something like a caravan. A caravan will probably always want to move between point A and point B, because it wants to get there fast, but it might have a lot of guards. So you might run up to it and go, oh, I don't think I'm actually going to win this fight. I'm going to run away, and it'll just continue on its way, not bothering you. But obviously, if you run into, like, a group of enemies who's pursuing you, and you flee and move away, they're probably going to chase you, and it's not going to be good either way. And you see, we already did a battle. This one will be pretty quick. It'll drop you in here. You go through, do this battle, and it will turn you to the map. He's defeated, so he's gone. One of the last things I have to program to really have this fully functional is you would get a pop-up window here at this point that says, hey, this is who you defeated. Here's your new loot. Add it to your inventory. You can also see that you can pop up your inventory while you're in here. I'll also let you discard and manage a few things while you're there. So that is the current state of the game. It's pretty I've made a ton of progress. I've been working on this about solidly for a month. I had a lot of the combat logic done last year when I started this project over the course of several weeks. All of the, all of this UI, all of this management is all new stuff. The overworld's all new stuff. So obviously there's a lot of art that needs to be done. I have a lot of gray boxes. These are literally text little arrows. I have a couple of UI assets like these little buttons in here. But yeah, and eventually, obviously, this is kind of the hub of our fortress. This is going to be a little wheel of buttons. I want this to be artistic, and that this is like the interior of the little hallway in the demon fortress. It has little glowy doors when you hover over the buttons that say, "Ooh, I want to go to the blacksmith," or "I want to go to the demon spawning pool," or the warband manager. So, sort of barracks and all of that. There's a ton of work to be done. A lot of it's art, a little bit of programming left. The majority of the programming I think I have left is going to be for the overworld enemies. One of the things I didn't show off is... Uh-oh. There's a bug. Because I left and returned to this map, it reloaded the enemies and put them back here. But if I end my turn, you can see enemies currently, they can take their turns, but they just they literally wander in a direction that is 10 by 10 away from them. They can't get 10 by 10 because they only move 8 slots, but that'll say what direction. So if this was an enemy, it would randomly go over here. But you could see that, same with our demons. It'll show you this is the path you would take, but this is actually how far you could reach. So that is currently what's set up. I need to set up AI behaviors to tell them, like I said, some of them are going to go point A to point B, just caravanning back and forth. You might have some wandering enemies, like I might put enemies that are actually other bandits, because you're kind of bandits being the demons, but random bandits in the world. Guards who are actually running out to go fight you. Occasionally around on the overworld, I also want to put little villages and stuff that your demons can kind of run up and conquer, and it gives you a new home base to connect to. So at some point, you'll start the game, you'll have a home base here, and you have to move your demons back to it. If you want to do any of the demon management stuff, if you want to sell your things, it's not going to be the most fun and efficient. But as you reach out in the world, you can conquer little spots that'll give you basically little portals back to your home hub. So you just have to reach a village and go, oh, I can sell and do my stuff here. So running out and kind of conquering villages and getting spots in the world is going to be one of your first objectives, along with, getting a little bit of cash and money. But, so yeah, you might have a village, and you'll just have villagers who wander in circles kind of around the village. The idea being oh, they're going between their farms and doing stuff, and they're just kind of out and about for you to go and harass and take stuff from. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on so far. A lot of stuff is to come. I hope you've enjoyed kind of looking at the early little bits and pieces of my project. Next couple of videos are going to be a lot more concentrated, obviously, because we're going over a big chunk of what the game is at the moment, instead of going over specific features that I've gotten finished. So next time we check in, I hope to show you the loot table after you've defeated an enemy, and hopefully show off some enemy behaviors, probably some enemy spawners on the overworld. That's one of the big things I want, is currently I've manually programmed in these 2 enemies to show up in the overworld, but I want them to kind of dynamically show up as the turns and the days tick over. Alright, thank you very much for watching. I hope to catch you on the next one.